All right, let's just jump right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. Today, we are unpacking a highly unconventional essay from January 2025 by an author named Xuefeng. He is predicting this inevitable tech-driven utopian society that he uniquely calls Xuefeng-style communism. And let me tell you, this essay is a fascinating and honestly at times a pretty surprising blend of artificial intelligence, deep human desires, and geopolitics. It challenges how we think about the future in some absolutely massive ways, so let's unpack exactly what he's arguing here.
So, to make sense of his 8 logical deductions, we've organized today's explainer into 4 main themes: redefining the communist vision, technology and global unification, human nature and freedom, and finally, the inevitable great harmony. Let's get right into section 1.
Part 1. Redefining the communist vision.
Now, when you hear the word communism, you probably think of historical regimes and political parties, right? Well, Xuefeng immediately pumps the brakes on that. He distances his theory from all of that history. Instead, he defines Xuefeng-style communism as the great harmony that sages have been searching for throughout human history. According to the text, this concept absolutely should not be misunderstood as some terrifying monster of state coercion. Instead, he views it as a system offering a life of happiness, total freedom, and fulfillment that simply emerges naturally over time.
It's really a night and day comparison for him. On one hand, you have traditional communism, which he explicitly associates with Marxist movements, aggressive political campaigns, and the forced confiscation of property. But on the flip side, Xuefeng-style communism is presented as a totally peaceful evolution. He argues it just emerges naturally with zero force involved and ultimately creates a vastly superior lifestyle that people are going to willingly and joyfully embrace.
2009. Get this. The author actually claims that true communism had never even been witnessed by humanity before this specific year. Why 2009? Well, that happens to be the year he established his very own social experiment, which he calls the Lifechanyuan communist home.
17. That is the number of years he points out that these experimental homes have been continuously running. Imagine that, a closed community completely sustaining itself for almost 2 whole decades. For Xuefeng, this isn't just a quirky experiment. It's definitive, hard proof that this is humanity's ideal lifestyle. He truly believes that as more people simply see it, this model is bound to spread like wildfire across the globe.
Moving on to part 2, technology and global unification. Think about the tech you're using literally right now. Xuefeng argues that the internet is essentially built on a communist framework of freely sharing information. And AI? He deduces that artificial intelligence inherently possesses universal, completely borderless values. Because we as a society can no longer function without the internet, and because we simply can't outpace AI, he argues that the baked-in values of these technologies are going to inevitably force a global unification. We literally won't have a choice.
90%. Honestly, that number is staggering. This is his prediction for future unemployment. He deduces that robots are eventually going to completely outnumber humans on Earth, which will profoundly flip our economic landscape upside down. So here is his logical roadmap for how that goes down. Step 1. Automation completely replaces human labor. Step 2. As a direct result of that, over 90% of the global population becomes permanently unemployed. Step 3. Well, because there are no jobs, societies are literally forced to provide universal welfare just to keep people alive and maintain stability. In Xuefeng's logic, once you reach that stage of universal welfare, boom, humanity has essentially entered a communist society by default.
Now, this next part is a real curveball in the text, the Elon Musk phenomenon. I know, you probably weren't expecting to see a defense of billionaire tech entrepreneurs in an essay advocating for a communist future. But Xuefeng actually points directly to them as the primary drivers making this massive transition happen.
He breaks it down by contrasting governments and entrepreneurs. He argues a government's primary goal is just to maintain power, right? Which gives them a super-limited, hyper-localized perspective. Entrepreneurs, though, their main goal is generating profit, which requires this massive, borderless, global vision. So Xuefeng deduces that capital in the hands of global-minded entrepreneurs actually benefits society more in the long run and will inevitably pave the way for this unified society way faster than any government ever could. So how does this tech shift actually impact politics? Well, Xuefeng points out that authoritarian regimes survive heavily on strict control of public opinion. They have to monopolize the media. But because the internet and AI are growing so vast that they're beyond government control, that media monopoly shatters. People naturally turn to decentralized information. And he deduces that this simple shift in information access will eventually cause authoritarian regimes worldwide to just collapse. All right, let's pivot to part 3, human nature and freedom. So beyond all the technology, what is actually driving this change from the inside out? Xuefeng says it's our own inherent human desires. First, he points to this intrinsic, unstoppable pursuit of freedom of movement. Second, a really deep craving for novelty and variety in human relationships, which he explicitly links to escaping the constraints of traditional marriage. Basically, he's arguing that human nature itself naturally rebels against borders and boundaries of all kinds. To back this up, he looks to real-world evidence, the Schengen area over in Europe. That's 29 countries right now participating in totally borderless travel. For him, this isn't just a convenient policy. It's hard proof that humanity is organically evolving toward the complete vanishing of border controls. He fully predicts that one day the entire globe will adopt a visa-free policy. He also makes a highly idiosyncratic argument about our personal lives. He claims that humans inherently crave novelty, and because of that, people are ultimately going to seek an escape from the constraints of traditional marriage so they can engage with others more broadly. Between instant global communication and total freedom of movement, he deduces that traditional marriage is just going to naturally fade away, getting replaced by much broader, unconstrained connections. And finally, part 4, the inevitable great harmony. If you map his whole theory out, he views human history as moving in one very clear, unstoppable direction. We start back in the barbarism of the primitive era, we move into our current era of socialism and capitalism, and we are inevitably marching toward the future. And he identifies that future not as an extension of what we have now, but specifically as Xuefeng-style communism, which he flat out calls the highest possible form of human civilization. He actually describes the arrival of this future with a really beautiful, evocative metaphor. He says it emerges gradually and naturally like spring rain nourishing the earth. I think that completely hits the nail on the head for his core thesis. This new society isn't going to arrive via some violent revolution or a harsh government mandate. It's going to happen organically and peacefully purely because it aligns perfectly with both human nature and our technological progress. So we'll end today's explainer by taking the author's utopian vision and turning it into a question for you. If automation truly does replace all of our labor, and if technology literally erases national borders, what kind of society is actually waiting for us on the other side? Look, whether you agree with Xuefeng's 8 deductions or you find them completely radical, his essay absolutely forces us to look in the mirror at our collective anxieties and the undeniable forces that are shaping our future. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.